a bit of a fun, less stressful video today. And when I say less stressful, I mean for you guys, not for me. I have a problem. I have three awesome devices here. I have the ROG Xbox Ally X, I have the AYN Thor, and I have the AYN Odin 2 Portal. And my problem is, you know from my previous videos that I really only use one, maybe two devices max. Up until this point, it has been the Odin 2 Portal and my Retro Pocket Flip 1. The Retro Pocket Flip 1 has been replaced by the AYN Thor. However, then the ROG Xbox Ally X has arrived, and so I am in a bit of a conundrum here, trying to decide between all three devices on what I want to keep, what I want to use, and what I want to play with. Now, I absolutely could just use all three. That's perfectly fine, but you only get to use one handheld at a time, so it doesn't really make sense to keep all three, but I could do that. So instead, for today's video, let's have some fun. You're going to help me decide on which of these three I should keep, and maybe help you if you're deciding between all three of them for whatever reason. Don't take this video too seriously at all. This is mostly for fun. I just wanted to talk over my thoughts because I figured I'm doing it in my head, I'm doing it on my end. There might be others out there that have the same thoughts, and so let's just get it out in video form. So don't take this one too seriously. I think all three devices are fantastic. We're going to get a little bit nitpicky today. But before we move on, let's talk about today's video sponsor, Ugreen. It is Ugreen Black Friday deals time. Buy all the Ugreen things, like their Ugreen Nexode 100-watt retractable charger. Yeah, there's a 2.5-foot retractable cable right inside, so no more messy cables everywhere. It'll do 100 watts of charging, which means a 14-inch MacBook Pro from 0 to 54% in 30 minutes. And it has 4 ports to charge 4 devices at the same time. It is awesome for a certain new ROG Xbox Ally X that has turbo mode, and it works with it. Then we have the Ugreen MagFlow magnetic power bank with Key 2 25-watt charging, which it can charge the new iPhone 17 Pro Max from 0 to 50% in 38 minutes. Or you can just charge up to 3 devices at the same time with all of the ports and pad. The included cable can do 30-watt PD input and output, so you can easily recharge the included 10,000 milliamp hour power bank. Best part about both products is that they're travel friendly. Throw them in a sling bag and off you go. Check out Ugreen's Black Friday deals in the description for up to 40% off. And I guess right off the bat, let's talk about pricing. And this is one of the segments that doesn't apply to me for a lot of different reasons. I did not get this for free. I bought it with my own money. I had a review unit of the AYN Thor, but I bought this with my own money. And I had a review unit of the Odin 2 Portal, but I bought this with my own money as well. So all three products were purchased with my own money. And I am more of the type of person that will buy a device, no matter the price, if it fits what I need it to do. So price for me doesn't matter, but price for you might matter. So we have the obvious AYN Thor and Odin 2 Portal at the same $299 price point because it is the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 version for the Portal, and it's actually on sale for $30 off. AYN Thor, it's the base price. And then we have the Xbox Ally X at a balmy $999 US. So yeah, pricing wise, there's a bit of a difference here. That probably means that right off the bat, you likely just made a decision already. But like I said, it's my video. Well, I'm not there yet. Then we look at the specs of them, and this is where things get actually interesting. The AYN Thor, of course, is a dual screen handheld. You have a 6-inch, 120 Hz, 1080p OLED screen at the top. And at the bottom, you have a 3.92-inch, 1240 by 1080, 60 Hz screen. The OLED is gorgeous. Having dual OLEDs is gorgeous, and having 2 screens is such a monumental feature that I have made very good use of. The dual screens is the biggest pro in the pro column of the Thor. That being said, the top screen does have a bit of image retention as an issue. Not burn-in, just retention. I never would have noticed this if it was not pointed out to me at some point, but even after testing it, I don't notice it during actually playing games. I can force it and I can see it myself if I make it show up, but during playing games, it's not something that I notice. So I want to mention it as a potential negative for others, but for me, it isn't one. Now, the Odin 2 Portal, on the other hand, has a 7-inch 1080p 120Hz OLED screen with no image retention issues, and so naturally, it is a much better display. It is a gorgeous OLED screen, and it makes me happy every time I see it. The ROG Xbox Ally X, unfortunately, is using a 7-inch 1080p 120Hz IPS display. Shockingly, I don't mind the Ally X's display at all during gaming, and I would be fine with it in all scenarios. But it isn't an OLED, so for this one, the win absolutely goes to the Odin 2 Portal. It is just no real comparison if we look at just the screens. That being said, the Thor with 2 screens is very hard to give up. You can see how hard this is getting already. Power-wise, the Thor and the Portal both have the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 processor, and they run Android. So you have limitations because of the operating system and just emulators not being super developed on Android compared to PC. But otherwise, I have more than enough power, for me personally, with this processor and what I use these devices for. The end result is you can basically run whatever you want. GameCube, PlayStation 2, Nintendo Switch stuff, and all of the systems below, but also you can do some PlayStation 3, some Wii U, and also there's Windows emulation now through GameHub, which is hit and miss. But Xbox and Xbox 360 emulation is still not there yet. On the complete opposite end, we have the Xbox Ally X, and that has a Ryzen Z2 Extreme processor inside. A lot more powerful than the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, of course, but also we have Windows here, and so we have a lot more that we can do. PlayStation 3, Wii U, Xbox 360 emulation, and it is much further ahead. And you have also PC games too. Sure, GameHub or Winlator and all of that are doing well on Android for a lot of games, but they are no replacement for an actual Windows PC handheld. And that is where the X completely excels. And so it is an easy win here for the Xbox Ally X when it comes to just straight power. In all honesty, these are tough to compare against because they are different use cases. So as much as this is an issue for me personally, this probably won't be an issue for a lot of people watching. Now, something interesting, the Thor and the Portal both have Wi-Fi 7 support, which matches my Wi-Fi 7 network. And since I do a lot of Apollo streaming from my gaming PC, that has been awesome. The Ally X, however, is Wi-Fi 6E. But because Windows has better decoding than Android, streaming has been better on the Xbox Ally X compared to the AYN Thor and the AYN Odin 2 Portal. Just factually, not by feel or anything like that. It is just overall more stable, more responsive, and I get better numbers. Now, for somebody like me who streams all of the time, this is a big plus. But it is like going from a 9 out of 10 and a 9 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10. So it isn't a massive difference, but again, we're nitpicky today. Then we get to the battery life, and this is where things get a little bit interesting again. The Thor has a 6,000 milliamp hour battery. The Portal has an 8,000 milliamp hour battery, and the Ally X has an 80 watt hour battery. Android generally does very well for battery. It is long and all of that sort of thing. And I did a very quick emulation test just to see how these three devices compare to each other running the same game. This is in no way scientific because we have OLED screens and we have an IPS screen and we have a whole bunch of other differences, but again, for fun today. For GameCube, 1080p on each device, all of the same settings, running at 100% brightness on all three devices, Wi-Fi on, 10% audio and all of that. And it was interesting. The Thor was the very first to hit 20% from 100% after 4 hours and 17 minutes. What was also interesting was the Thor was beating out the Portal all the way up until the 60% mark, which means you have to be very careful when you're doing battery tests with these devices, especially like I see a lot of content creators do, because they'll just do 10% increments, 15% increments. However, the Thor was beating out the Portal up until 60% left, which means there is some iffy stuff going on there with Android on the Thor when it comes to above 60%. Now, the Portal was next to hit 20% from 100% after 4 hours and 43 minutes. And then the X was last to hit 20% from 100% after 5 hours and 34 minutes. The X won by a large margin in this specific, non-scientific scenario. Now, I chose GameCube because that is a realistic usage for me on using these devices. For the most part, I would use the Xbox Ally X because of retro achievements and Dolphin and all of that support, but that's coming to Android devices too. So I just wanted to see and compare, what am I losing if I went from Xbox Ally X to one of these devices battery-wise? Now, what changes though is if we look at lower-end retro emulation, like Super Nintendo, Game Boy Advance, and all of that sort of thing. The Xbox Ally X can only go up to 7 watts. That is the base minimum of what it can do. These have no such limitations. So I'm going to imagine that when it comes to those sorts of emulation, a lot of retro systems, they're going to come out way ahead in those scenarios. But again, I wanted to do a realistic expectation of what you would use these devices for. So if we tie it all up, the win goes to the Xbox Ally X, then we go to the Odin 2 Portal, then we have the Thor. But in all honesty, all three devices have fantastic battery. So it's getting harder. And I guess the last part about specs here is the size and weight. The AYN Thor is the smallest of the three devices. It is a clamshell and easily the most portable. The Odin 2 Portal is larger, but also not much heavier, and so it comes right into second, with the Xbox Ally X in last place due to just absolutely how massive it is. Plus its weight of 715 grams, which is almost double what the other two have as a weight. Now, in my hands at home, I am just fine using all three devices. The Xbox Ally X, when I normally play on my couch, feels fine. So do both of these other devices. If I'm traveling, there's only one of these devices that I want, and it's the AYN Thor. But with the weight, we also have to talk about the ergonomics. This is a tough one. The Xbox Ally X is very, very comfortable. Extremely. But I also find the Portal is too, with the grip. And the Portal is much lighter. The Thor is a distant third in this conversation just due to how the clamshell nature is and what they had to cram into it and all of that sort of thing. But the Ally X has nice grips for handholds and it feels great, whereas the Portal does need a grip for it to be non-slippery, not for comfort, but for it to not slip out of my hands. And so the Ally X gets the win by default for not needing anything extra to make it comfortable. The Portal is no slouch here, but it is second. Let's go ahead and talk about sound and audio now, because there is one clear winner here, and it's not even close, and this will be quick. The Xbox Ally X, I have no earthly idea how they pulled this off, but it has the best speakers, sound, rumble, audio, and everything in any handheld that I've ever used, and it's not even close, like nowhere near close. Music and sound vibrations go into the grips of the Xbox Ally X, which is actually where I assume they probably have some sort of vibration module or something going on in there that gives you that feeling, and it immerses you in what you are playing and what you are listening to. And it includes the fact that the speakers are downright fantastic, plus this little bit of immersion, and it's just no contest. I have had the Xbox Ally X for weeks now, maybe a month, and it still impresses me every time I use the device. The Portal is up second. I like the sound and I like the audio, and I think it's good, and I would have the Thor as last. They have good sound, but they are nowhere near the level of the Xbox Ally X. Then we get to the controls, and this is also unfortunately where we have a clear winner here, and it is again the Xbox Ally X. We have full-size controls, so you have actual analog sticks, a nice big D-pad, big buttons, shoulders, and triggers, and so on. I can't personally complain about any of this. I know some people don't like the sound of the buttons, but having used an Xbox controller for pretty much my entire life, it is just something that I'm used to. Now, on the other end, the Portal's controls is something that I've been extremely happy with. Swap the stick for the bigger Portal stick, and you have some really good controls. Nice sticks, large buttons, and so on. A lot of people have issues with the clacky nature of the Portal's buttons, but for some reason my model does not seem to have that issue, so I can't relate on that. Then we have the AYN Thor in last, and the controls are not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but in comparison to the other two devices, it is a distant third. And I guess we arrive at the end here, putting all of this together into one package and just talking it through to see where we're at. I'm going to be honest, I still have a lot of trouble deciding even after all of this, but let's talk through it. The AYN Thor, to me, is a permanent fixture right now. It is a unique device on the market, and it has a unique feature that for me makes it a device that I need to have. The dual screens are absolutely awesome, not just for DS and 3DS like you would expect, but for me to have a guide up on that second screen while I am playing a game at the top. Stream to the top, play natively, doesn't matter. The Thor can do it all. It has the power to do it all. And really the only negative to it is the controls, which I have gotten used to by now, but that's not to say that they're perfect. It is also the smallest of the three devices, and so it can be brought with me anywhere. It is always in my sling bag, and so the Thor, no matter what, is the device that will come out on top in this battle for me personally, just by how useful it is. Then we get to my Odin 2 Portal, and this is my beloved handheld. I have been using the Odin 2 Portal for the past 10 months, daily. It has been my daily driver for that entire time. I have used my Portal probably more than anybody else on this entire planet. That is how much use it has gotten out of me. And I have no negatives to say about it. It has offset, awesome controls, a beautiful, gorgeous 7-inch OLED screen, the power to play whatever I want, the battery to last as long as I want, and has awesome streaming, and so on. At $299, it is an absolutely insane value. It is the best handheld on the market, and I will stand by that even right now at the end of 2025. Compared to the Thor, it is larger, and so it is less portable. And in fact, I have never really brought it out on trips with me either because I don't want to. It is just a little too big for that. But it is a much comfier device than the Thor is, and it has better controls and a larger screen. I think if you forced me to choose between the AYN Odin 2 Portal and the AYN Thor right now, I don't know if I can make a decision. And that's likely why we're doing this video. The Thor has way more use cases to me personally. The dual screens, all of that, adds a whole layer of gaming and use cases that just didn't exist before. But the Odin 2 Portal is tried, tested, and true. Over 10 months, it has been perfect. I don't have negatives to say about the Odin 2 Portal. That is as good a praise as I can give any device that I've ever used. So if you had to put a gun to my head and choose one of these devices, I don't know what I would do right now. But of course, we have a third device, and it is the ROG Xbox Ally X. And this is where everything gets difficult. The only thing that the X does not have is an OLED screen. Otherwise, it is just better than the Odin 2 Portal in every way besides the size and weight. If the size and weight don't bother you, like they don't for me, it kind of becomes the de facto device. Even for somebody who streams 99% of the time, it has better streaming and better capabilities outside of streaming. The sound, the audio, and the rumble are also things that I just can't escape. I literally cannot stop using the device because of how immersive the sound is. I can't overstate how good that is, and I am super sad that it does not come through in video form. But the fact that the Portal is 90% of the way there and a third of the price should tell you how good the Odin 2 Portal is in comparison to the Xbox Ally X if you're on the other hand trying to make a decision. Okay, and so let's wrap up this long video, and let's see if we can get it all together into a too long didn't watch for those of you that are going to skip to the end like you usually do. The AYN Thor is the de facto choice for portability. It has the power, it has the screens, it has all of that. If DS and 3DS are what you want, if streaming to the top, guide bottom is what you want, if game top, guide bottom is what you want, if you want something to just throw in your bag and bring with you, all of that sort of thing, the AYN Thor is the de facto choice. Now, if the dual screens have literally no value to you whatsoever, in which case you're crazy, but I get it, the Odin 2 Portal would be the choice there. Same price, you get a much bigger screen, you get better comfort, all of that. So yeah, it's not expensive, it is powerful, it is the best all-rounder Android device that you can buy, and you don't break the bank for it either. Okay, now if money is no object and you want the best possible experience for everything, it's going to be the Xbox Ally X. It really is the best experience out of all three for every single thing, besides the screen, which the Portal wins out on. But if size and weight don't bother you and the money isn't something you care about, then yeah, this is kind of the one. And so this becomes trouble because now I promised you some sort of decision at the end of this video. I don't know if I did, but we'll do it anyways. If you put a gun to my head and made me decide on all three devices, the Xbox Ally X, I think, would be the one that I would have to leave with, just by nature of what it does, everything that it can do, all of that sort of thing. If you made me decide on a second device, it would be the AYN Thor, just by nature of the fact that I could bring it anywhere I want. It goes in my sling bag easily. I can carry it around. It has the power to do whatever. It would be the de facto choice. I would be hard-pressed to decide between both of these devices in a lot of scenarios. But again, gun to my head, I go one, I go two, and I want to turn it around so it can't hear me, but I've used this for 10 months daily. It is a perfect Android handheld. It's third in this list, but we are like 10, 9.9, 9.8. Like, it is so close. So that is my forced gun rankings of all three devices. Let me know in the comments if this video helps you make a decision at all. I'm very curious if me talking it through helps you at all in any sort of way, especially probably because a lot of people are looking at these two devices and trying to make a decision. I don't know so much about this one, but you should look at this one too. That's going to be it for this one. Don't forget to like and sub to help the channel grow. Come join me on the Discord to talk all about handhelds like these ones. Support me through YouTube membership if you like my stuff. And hope you all have a good one.